Man, the Will Smith thing. Bear with me. It's been a long week. I don't have much voice left. We have to talk about it, though. We have to talk about Will Smith, chivalry, and benevolent sexism. First thing, I'm going to try and find and link Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's excellent, necessary response to this event. His commentary is hopefully in the sort of down there zone. And I'm not qualified to talk on black issues. That's not what this is about. I'm not here to talk about black issues. Race issues generally. Not me. Not today. Not this. Kareem ranges through and beyond the issues of race. He's in race and feminism and everywhere that it's necessary to be right now. Sort of one of the elder statesmen of American racial work. Ultimate respect for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's kind of a genius. He's worthy of platforming to the extent I have a platform to give him, with my full respect. Nothing I'm going to say is going to disagree with KAJ. I want to focus elsewhere. So that aside, that down there, I mean, I would read Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and stop. I have refrained from commenting on my social media or in classrooms or anywhere else really on the Oscars slap. I don't care. I don't care about the Oscars. I don't care in particular about Will Smith. I don't care about Chris Rock. I'm sure nice fellows in their own spaces and whatever, and just they're of no importance. They're of no importance to me. And as a psychologist, I have something of an ethical obligation to refrain from applying clinical skills and knowledge to public figures. I'm going to continue to refrain from that. I'm not going to make any diagnostic statements. But people keep asking me. People keep asking me about Chris Rock and Will Smith as though I'd have some special insight. And as a psychologist, maybe I do have some special insight. That's why I'm making the thing here. It's not going to be what you think. It's not going to be what you think. This chat isn't really about Will Smith, Chris Rock, the Oscars. It isn't. It's really about how people reacted. I could keep saying no to requests for comment. I could do that indefinitely. But the reaction in my circles was weird. Initially, there was a wave of praise. Not everybody, a few people, but a wave of praise for Will Smith slapping Chris Rock in public. This is weird because my social media folks tend to be pretty lefty. I know, shocking, right? Black Pill's social media is lefty. Come on. No, really, I've tossed all the Nazis. Who's left behind is folks who tend to support Black Lives Matter and are feminists of new medium and old waves, and that's who's left. People who enjoy democracy and understand civic process and know that justice must be blind and are into the actual rule of actual law. They're anti-bullying and largely anti-gun in ethos and so forth. And so I was pretty puzzled when friends of mine started making statements like, way to stand up for your woman. Way to stand up for your woman. That was pretty weird. And then people would get pushback about it. After that initial wave, the people sort of admiring the slapper and the slap got some feedback in their comments, and a few of them took it quite badly. If you're so anti-violence, why aren't you mad at X thing? Insert issue. And this hit me even harder because it's Nazi talk. It's Nazi talk. Hey, it's more aptly Leninist. Okay, yeah, I get it. Whataboutism is really a Leninist tactic, but the American fascist movement has really claimed that tactic. And it's a tactic that does two things. Number one, it changes the subject from praising Will Smith for assaulting a dude in public to some more lefty issue like domestic violence. It's changing the subject from your immediate praise of violence to a different issue, domestic violence. And sliding the person who made the original post back into their proper silo. Like you've stepped out of your silo, kind of lefty public politics, which I admire and support. You've stepped out of that into supporting violence, and you're stepping back into it. So that's the one thing it does, changing the subject. It also moves the burden of defense. It moves the burden of defense from the original poster who praised violence to the commenter who said, I'm not so sure violence is a great idea that's out of character for you. And it's putting that person back on their heels. If it worked, it would be putting that person back on their heels. Well, you're not a sufficient supporter of anti-domestic violence tactics. So, well, it's not what we're talking about. It's changing the subject. It's, man, if you must know, I'm not on the rooftops shouting about domestic violence because my friends aren't directly praising domestic violence, and they are directly praising Will Smith smacking Chris Rock in the face. And in spaces you don't see, in fact, I teach about issues of domestic violence every day to people who are reachable and accountable and thanks. So what I want to do today really is come straight at the claim of chivalry, that it is chivalrous for a man to stand up for his woman with violence. Chivalry begins as a moral philosophy, Western Europe, Britain. It's a moral philosophy for expensive, powerful, heavily armed medieval knights who serve feudal lords. If you hop on the Google or whatever and Google chivalry, you're going to get words like code of conduct. But formal written codes weren't really the order of the day. Formal written codes weren't the order of the day. This is more like a religion or a moral code derived from religion, but the kind of religion where priests speak in Latin and the congregation doesn't understand Latin, right? It's not stuff that's going to be easily understood, written down, codified, step by step. So modern chivalry, or what we call chivalry, has something to do with medieval chivalry, but not entirely everything. It derives a few items from knightly manners. We can see these bits and pieces of ancient chivalry in the Western world, so-called Western world, when drivers yield to pedestrians, for example, or when a boxer helps her opponent up from the mat, or when someone wins a competition, scores the touchdown, is voted through to the next round, whatever it is, and they point to the sky, and they're implying that their win is because of the grace of God. And on any given day, their opponent might have won, except that today is their day, not through any superiority of theirs necessarily. It's a kind of humility. Is it good humility? Maybe that's a talk for another day, but it is a kind of humility. The knight was expected to be humble, to never brag or show off, to do right for the sake of right, because it's right we do what's right. Never to seek glory or reward. to be courageous, to act courageously, to protect the weak, to protect women, to protect the honor of women, as well as the safety of women. Women in this age, the fairer sex, were a kind of property, not quite chattel slaves, but in the same general bucket, kept, hoarded, pampered, loved like treasure, paraded around. In a violent world, girls were surrounded by walls of stone and rings of steel, at least the highborn ones. But they were also married against their will, prevented the most fundamental of freedoms, and savagely fought, contested over. Women were a commodity. Etiquette, the Emily Post stuff, derives, at least loosely, from chivalry. Etiquette is the courtly manners that would derive from the knightly manners. Throwing one's cloak into the mud so a lady needn't soil her shoes, for example. But also returning letters in a timely fashion and opening doors for ladies, letting her precede him into a room. Standing up for your loved ones is probably some sort of good. Slapping someone because they insulted your woman is probably bad. This isn't chivalry. The chivalrous man, the knight, protects the weak. This action, this assault, both implies that the woman is weak, that she's too weak to stand up for herself. As Kareem Abdul-Jabbar points out quite eloquently, that she's too weak to stand up to words. It implies weakness of women and simultaneously attacks the weak. Will Smith is 6'2", and the best resource I can find suggests he's about $180, a trim 180 pounds. Chris Rock is 170, about 5'10", as well as 5 years older and frailer. Chris Rock is 57. Will Smith is an action movie star. He trained to portray Muhammad Ali. He knows how to hit. Chris Rock isn't. He's not an action movie hero. And more importantly, the knight would never attack with a sucker punch. What's chivalrous about a sucker punch, about throwing a strike from the waist? You walk up, you grab the eye contact of the victim, and you strike up from the waist. So the victim never has a chance to respond by stepping back or blocking up. That's not chivalry. A chivalric knight would defend honor honorably. They would walk up to the person and say something like, "Sir, you have offended the lady. Apologize, or I must demand satisfaction." That kind of thing. Sucker punching an old man is no kind of chivalry. Once more for the record, I don't give a crap about Chris Rock or Will Smith. I don't care. What I care about is friends of mine. Celebrating the violence and calling it chivalry. More important than this is that implication that Jada is weak. This is the ultimate flaw of chivalry. Some people are massive. powerful, and authorized to use violence. The rest of us depend on that violence so that we can live daily lives in service to the Lord. We make that Lord seem moral, and that service seem like our free will, our devotion, to cover up the fact that the Lord could loose that night on us at any time for the slightest infraction without a trial. In this system, women are property, but so is every man except the king. Everyone but the king is a slave. The king owns the lords. The lords own the ladies and the knights and the serfs, and the whole system keeps itself in check by making this all into a moral code that people follow apparently voluntarily. That's dead. That system is dead. Some of the remnants are probably good for us. Cars, for example, yielding to pedestrians. Some of it is probably bad. Some of the remnants are probably toxic, corrosive. Holding doors for women. I hold doors for everyone, because if I hold doors just for women, it seems like I'm holding the doors for some motivation. If I hold doors for people of disability and nobody else, it implies those people are weak and need my help. And I just trust people to be strong enough to ask for help if needed. If it's right to hold doors for women, then it's also right to hold doors for men. If it's right to hold doors for people of disability, it's right to hold doors for people of average ability. And in modernity, it might always be clear who does or does not wish that door held for them. Might not be clear who identifies as male or female. And this brings us around necessarily to benevolent sexism. This is sexism camouflaged as respect. It's encoded often in our traditional gender roles. Someone insults my wife, I take offense on her behalf, I put my larger body in the way. Benevolent sexism. We tell girls they're pretty, we tell boys they're smart and strong. Even before they're born, the baby's kicking in the womb, and mommy and daddy, if they know the baby is a girl, say, oh, she's so fussy. And if a boy, they say he's so strong, he's so strong. When a man struggles with a task, we tend to let him be. When a woman struggles with a task, we tend to slide in and take over the task. Incels troll the internet, telling women they'd be happier if they just married some dude and stayed home raising children because that's their natural lot in life. This leads us to a moment in 2016 when Donald Trump is on the stage with Hillary Clinton and says the words, "Nobody respects women more than me." The audience openly laughs. I don't know who was laughing in the audience. Was it the lefties? Just the absurdity of that idea? The complete nonsense of Donald Trump being the epitome of respect for ladies? Or is it Nazis laughing at the magnificence of the trolling of Trump owning the libs? I don't know. Respect means more than it used to. In the old days, respect was merely deference to authority. You farmed for the Lord, or else he withdrew the protection of his knights and left you to bandits or Vikings. That's not respect. It's coercion, deference to power. Your parents probably taught you my way or the highway, and because I said so, because I'm bigger. If you talked back, maybe you got smacked, and if you swore, maybe your folks would drag you into the bathroom and wash your mouth out with soap. These things are abusive coercion. They are not acts of love. Respect now means something much, much more than that. An acknowledgement of the freedom and individuality of the person, a commitment to understand them if they present themselves in good faith, some amount of restraint, some good faith commitment to dialogue. Those things might constitute respect and modernity. Benevolent sexism is telling your boys not to be so rude to the coffee girl, while still referring to a 30-year-old woman coerced to wearing a skimpy outfit as a girl. Benevolent sexism is also saying women earn less than men because they're bad negotiators, and if we taught them to negotiate their salaries better, they'd earn the same. And all of the time saying that, preventing any actual help for the issue by legally forbidding negotiated salaries in favor of transparent and standardized pay practices. Feminism has changed over the years. Old guards have succeeded in their work. The first wave of feminism did what it could in that first wave with the society they had. And then new people came along who in a new society could see further, who could advance the cause further. In the beginning, feminism meant men and women were relegated to separate roles by nature, but women should be respected for their differences. Early pre-first wave feminism was about men not coming home drunk and beating their wives, but women being quite content to stay home at the homestead and raise children and keep things orderly, but be respected for that. Over time, the differences, though, are shown to be social constructs. The differences between men and women are few and small average differences. So that in modernity, much of feminism is about men and women are basically the same, with the same drives and needs and concerns, and should therefore be treated equally, with equal protection under the law, equal opportunity, and equal rights. Whatever Will Smith slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars was, it wasn't chivalry. And it wasn't feminism. One more time, I couldn't care less about the actual men in the actual incident. Far more disturbed by the admiration and then weird defensiveness and fascist tactics from anti-fascist people. Chivalry has to die. Chivalry has to die. Something would have to replace it. Maybe that something could be self-honesty. Sometimes we mess up. Will Smith bit it hard. When you mess up, the thing to do is fairly and honestly evaluate incoming feedback. Take a day. Take a day and don't respond to that feedback. Let it percolate. Feel guilty. Feel guilty long enough to work out whether that guilt is appropriate or inappropriate, and make a decision. Make a decision and then respond. from a place of knightly humility. And sometimes the answer is, gross, you're right. I have erred. I am human. This doesn't represent who I want to be. Thank you for the reminder. Black Pill out.